I think ever since I saw the Broadway show, there were that's when I probably really first started to feel like this is something I should pursue
Okay.
because I came away from that just feeling like it was like being at church, the Church of Springsteen, even more than
Yes.
an E Street Band show is.
Yeah.
And there was so much about it that just him telling these stories from his life and pairing them with the songs and stuff. It's just there is so much that it's him telling us about his life, but it's so universal in so many ways. I related to it a lot, and I'm from a completely different generation from him with a different upbringing, but there's still so much that I saw myself in what he was saying, and I could just tell that that's the appeal of it. He
Yeah.
knows that it's his life, and it's he's also speaking to all of us and holding up a mirror. That's what he's always done. So I think that's when I really started to gather a lot from that. And there's a lot in the book that comes from the Broadway show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Set Listing Bruce, your podcast all about Bruce Springsteen, his music, and mostly his fans. I am your host, Jesse Jackson. Multiple years ago, there was a book, Everything I Needed to Know I Learned in Kindergarten. And since then, there have been multiple Everything I Need to Learn in Life. I learned from Star Trek or Doctor Who or blah, blah, blah. But there was a glaring need. We Springsteen fans needed a book that says everything I need to know I learned from Bruce Springsteen. And Trevor Courneen said, "Hey, I see that need and I'm meeting it." Trevor, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me, Jesse.
Yeah, tell us a little about yourself.
I live in Brooklyn. I'm 34 years old. I work for a publishing company, and I spent a few years now trying to get them to make this book. And here we are. It's finally happened. It's been out for a month now, and it's everything I could want it to be.
Great. We are going to get to the book, and I was saying, everything I need to learn, everything I need to know, I learned from Bruce Springsteen, wisdom from the music and musing of an American dreamer. But before that, I always like to start at the beginning. Tell us, where did you grow up and what kind of music did you like to listen? What music were your family listening to?
Yeah, so I grew up in the Rochester, New York area, and my parents were both pretty into country, like the modern pop country on the radio in the 90s and early 2000s. But my dad also is a huge classic rock fan, and his favorite bands are Aerosmith, Rolling Stones, Bob Seger, and he's a big Bruce fan. And so I liked the country I heard when I was a kid and was exposed to that, but I gradually started to gravitate to more of what my dad was listening to.
What kind of country were they listening to?
Like Reba McEntire, Brooks and Dunn, those types of artists who were
Okay.
on the radio all the time when,
Okay.
you know, mid 90s.
Okay. So when I always, this is sometimes hard for people to say, but I always like to ask. So, can you remember when you first learned Bruce, or like in your case, it was already around? When did it become your road to Damascus moment where Bruce's music spoke to you? And can you articulate what about his music meant so much to you?
Yeah, so I know when I was younger, I know I heard Born to Run and Hungry Heart and Dancing in the Dark, the songs that were on the radio.
Sure.
And I liked those songs and I knew who he was. It wasn't until I remember just driving around with my dad. He had the greatest hits CD. And I think Born to Run's the first track on that. And then the second track is Thunder Road.
Yeah.
And that's where there was a noticeable change in the way I was hearing Bruce Springsteen. Something about that. And I think it's because I was really starting to get into writing, poetry, creative writing, and exploring that and figuring out that's what I wanted to do. And just from the storytelling and the incredible lyrics in that song, I was like, okay, wow, this guy is really someone to pay attention to.
Mm-hmm. Did uh, since you mentioned, were you a big reader? Did you read a lot growing up? And was your family readers?
I know I have a book out now, but I didn't love reading in high school. I dreaded
Okay.
doing the summer reading. But I was good at English class and I liked
Okay.
to write.
Okay.
And yeah, it took me a while to figure out I wanted to steer more towards uh, creative writing and that kind of thing. So I was, yeah, by the end of high school, I was embracing it more. And then in college, I did go and get an English and writing degree,
Hmm.
but not so much, honestly.
Oh, no, that's good. What did Was it just being good at English that led you to get that degree, or what was that moment you decided, hey, this is maybe what I want to do?
I think because I'm a musician too, and so I write songs, and I just wanted any chance I could get at that. But I'm not a classically trained musician or anything. I
Right.
just play guitar for fun. But I knew I wanted to write better lyrics and hone that aspect. And so I think I was just seeing those classes as the avenue to
Okay.
that. And so that's how
Hmm.
I ended up there, just trying to combine my interests as best I could. And
Yeah. Did Always to preface this, the amount of times you've seen Bruce perform live is not a fair barometer of how big of a fan you are.
I'm
Um,
glad you said that.
yes, but for the record, have you seen him live? And if so, do you count how many times?
Yes, I've seen him 8 times, including one of those was the Broadway show,
Okay.
and twice on this tour.
Hmm. Any stories from the shows you might want to share?
Yeah, so the first show I went to was with my dad, and
That
that
must
was
have been
in
a nice moment.
yeah, that was in Buffalo in 2008. It was the Magic Tour, and it came about. I was a freshman in college at the time. It came about because he didn't know how to use Ticketmaster or really much of the internet at all at that point. And he asked me to go to the library at school and get on Ticketmaster and get him Bruce Springsteen tickets. And he wanted to take a woman he had just started dating at the time. And I was like, this is when I was just really getting into and starting to really
Yeah.
appreciate Bruce. So I was like, all right, well, I will get these tickets for you, but I think you need to take me instead.
Ah, good for you. Good
Yeah.
play.
And he was great with that. So we went and then got there and realized, and I know they still sell these tickets on every tour and it's fine for a lot of people, but our seats were directly behind the stage.
Hmm.
And he was surprised by that and he was like, this will not do. So
Hmm.
he spotted a couple seats way down towards the front, like almost one of the first lower level rows right
Yeah.
before the floor. And he was like, we're going to go try sit there until someone kicks us out because we're in their seats. And we went and sat there, and somehow no one ever came for those seats.
Oh, how hilarious.
So that was,
See, I never have that courage. Like it just, I good for your dad. I always now, like after 4 or 5 songs, maybe I'd like, okay, maybe now. But good for him.
yeah,
That's great.
yeah.
That's wonderful. Yeah. So any thoughts on the tour this time? There's been a little bit of brouhaha about the set list not changing very much. Any
Right.
thoughts on that?
I understand that complaint, but at the same time, it hasn't bothered me. And
Yeah,
I only went twice. I went to Penn State once and I went to Brooklyn one of those nights.
yeah,
And they were very similar except for a couple in the middle. And
yeah,
Penn State, I got Hungry Heart. And in Brooklyn, we got Because the Night. That's good enough for me, just
yeah,
that little variety. But yeah, at this point in his career and just with the way he used to tour and how much he would mix it up and
yeah,
everything, why not at this point? If
sure.
he still wants to do it, I would hope at the end of the day we're all just grateful for it. And I
Yeah,
think, yeah, and I think I was just gonna say that I think maybe doing the Broadway show for so long probably helped him appreciate telling a
yeah.
narrative with a collection of songs because that's what it seems like he's doing now.
So I'm going to get to the Bruce book, but before I do, my son is a massive WWE fan.
Yeah, I think I
Uh,
know why you're asking that.
yes, and he still to this day loves telling the story. He was in junior high and WrestleMania was coming to Houston, and it was going to be Austin versus The Rock.
Yeah.
And we're going to be in the Astrodome. And we live in Dallas. And that was the closest it had ever been in his young life. And he was like, God, if I could just go, this would be the greatest gift ever. My wife and I, Linda, said, okay, hey, get all straight A's. We'll get you tickets. And then we just went and bought tickets. We were going to let him go
Yeah.
anyway. And sure enough, he got straight A's, the only time ever. But so we drove down to Houston. We did the expo beforehand together. We stayed in a really cheap hotel. We watched like a Rangers summer league game. That was the first time A-Rod was playing with them. And then
Uh-huh.
we went to WrestleMania and he's, can I shoot the finger, Dad? Yes, you can shoot the finger. And Austin turned heel. Austin turned heel.
Oh yeah.
He, to this day, he is now 34. And this is it. About every 2 or 3 years, he will convince me to pull up and we will watch that match again. He knows
Yeah.
every word. I mean, he can just route it this. So when I told him that I was having a writer here that has written a Springsteen book, you're like, oh, he's also written a book about WWE rules. What? So talk to me about writing and what was your thought behind this? And tell me a little bit about that book and plug it, please.
About the WWE book?
Yes.
Sure. That was a long time ago, but
Yeah.
when I first started working for the company Topics Media Lab and then Media Lab Books
Yeah.
is who does the book side of things. Yeah, we partnered with WWE for a bunch of special projects. Um, my boss used to work there. He used to run the magazine when they had a regular magazine. So we maintained that connection. And yeah, an idea came about to basically create what's never actually existed in physical form, the official rules of WWE wrestling.
Yeah.
So my editor in chief and I basically conceived most of it and just went nuts with our many years of fandom and throwing in as many references and stuff as we could. It's like a huge joke. It's really just like a big inside joke for wrestling fans. Obviously, it's not a straightforward
Right.
book of rules. There's crude illustrations and stuff throughout it, and it's supposed to look like it was just a bunch of loose paper gathered together in a manila folder that the wrestlers themselves are like changing the rules on the fly and stuff. So
And like you would give a rookie wrestler, like, okay, here's what you have to do this. As we're recording this, the game 7 just ended with the Astros playing the Rangers. And I probably would have brought this up even if the Rangers didn't win. But there was a Garcia hit a home run and showed off, trotted and threw his bat down and then jumped on it. And the next time he was a bat, the pitcher hit him. And the pitcher says it wasn't deliberate, but there is those unwritten rules, right, that a pitcher is supposed to punish.
Yeah.
Did he mean to hit him? I don't know. I agree with everyone that said you don't hit someone and put someone on base when it's game 5 of the American League Championship Series.
Yeah.
But the other one, though, is I assume that's what a lot of these things are, right? That kind of thing, right?
They're based
Um,
on specific instances of,
yeah,
yeah, everyone knows what you're referring to and
yeah.
you read it like,
What are a couple of your favorites? And I know it's been a while.
yeah, it has been a
So,
while.
yeah. Because I would think right now, if as a fan, there are certain things when blank says this, you're supposed to say that. That's a rule, right? LA Knight right now.
Exactly.
That he's the latest. My son is really proud that when he first saw him during this latest, he said, Dad, this guy's got a little something. He may, if they trade him, he may pop.
Yeah.
And that you hear the broken glass, you immediately go crazy. I am looking forward to, I'm going to buy the book for my son for Christmas because I figure he will
Awesome.
really enjoy, right? He'll get these inside jokes.
It's for someone like him for sure,
Yeah.
especially if he's the same age as me.
Yeah.
I would hope he'll probably get all the references in
Yeah.
it.
That's great. Good. All right. You had said you've been trying to write a Springsteen book for a while. Talk to me about your challenges. Talk to me about the journey, my friend, please.
Yeah, the challenges were basically timing. It's not that when I first pitched this book 3 years ago or whenever it was that nobody said Bruce Springsteen isn't a big enough name to write this
Yeah.
book about. It's just that's a tricky business publishing. And so it had to be the right timing. It had to be
Yeah.
what it turned out to be was 50 years since Greetings from Asbury Park came out. So that's a great anniversary.
Hmm.
And that's a nice, neat number. And also just lined up. I don't think I even knew at the time, but it lined up with the big tour and everything. And
Hmm.
we're getting close to Bruce turning 75. So when that happens, it's going to stay relevant. And yeah, so I basically had to wait for something like that before they said, all right, now we're talking. That's the type of release window we want to aim for.
So I'm a little bit curious, is how did you write this? What had been, is there things always in the back of your mind? Oh, I should do this, right? Or that, or tell me the process of writing this.
Yeah, I think ever since I saw the Broadway show, there were that's when I probably really first started to feel like this is something I should pursue
Okay.
because I came away from that just feeling like it was like being at church, the Church of Springsteen, even more than
Yes.
an E Street Band show is.
Yeah.
And there was so much about it that just him telling these stories from his life and pairing them with the songs and stuff. It's just there is so much that it's him telling us about his life, but it's so universal in so many ways. I related to it a lot, and I'm from a completely different generation from him with a different upbringing, but there's still so much that I saw myself in what he was saying, and I could just tell that that's the appeal of it. He
Yeah.
knows that it's his life, and he's also speaking to all of us and holding up a mirror. That's what he's always done. So I think that's when I really started to gather a lot from that. And there's a lot in the book that comes from the Broadway show. I couldn't help but reference it a
Yeah.
bunch of times.
Yeah. So I think now would be a good time. We had talked about before we hit record that you said, hey, I could read something from the book. And I think to get a feel for the listeners who haven't bought the book yet, to get a feeling what you're doing, let's go ahead and grab. One of the things I do love about it is it is a few years ago, Trevor, I decided for Lent that I would do 40 days of Springsteen. And turns out Lent is longer than 40 days because you don't count Sundays. But I would pick a song and then I would do a 3 to 5 minute discussion of what that song means to me and what I think it's trying to teach us. And it was a really fun thing. When I read this, it reminded me of that. If you could, and if you need a few minutes, that's okay. The magic of editing, it'll seem like you picked one immediately. Get me one and share, please.
Yeah, I have them. I still have a few marked from when I did my reading last month. Yeah, and this one has a lot from the Broadway show, like I was just saying. So this one's called Find the Magic in the Mundane. In the opening moments of his spectacular Springsteen on Broadway show, Bruce takes a wrecking ball to the fourth wall. Standing before a sold-out Walter Kerr theater night after night, the singer would explain the expectations of his job. These are fans who are waiting for you to pull something out of your hat, out of thin air, something out of this world. But the real magic trick in play here, as the boss puts it, is his ability to simply provide proof of life. The problem, as most know too well, is that real life can be pretty boring. It's natural to get tired of toiling away on the job or feel like you're stuck in a time loop repeating the same routine day after day. In another meta moment of Springsteen on Broadway, Bruce jokes about this very feeling. I've never worked 5 days a week until right now. I don't like it, he says. But when we hear our own struggles conveyed through song, the perception starts to change. Whether it's the motivational spirit of Night or the exuberant pride of working on the highway, music can help us see the joy in what we do. This perceived magic is just the inverse of an old expression. It's art imitating life. Bruce has never concocted a song by literally conjuring the spirits of rock and roll, as much as it may seem that way sometimes. He's simply been taking what he sees, no matter how gray and gloomy it may appear, and putting it through a kaleidoscopic lens. And you can do the same. If you take a closer, more imaginative look at all the seemingly dull aspects of your day-to-day life, you might see a glimmer of magic, or at least the potential for it.
I love that. I have not read the book yet. I wanted to hold off visit with you before I tore into it. And I think there is a lot to be said. There is a lot of wisdom in Bruce's lyrics and the reason why it speaks to us. I also think his music changes as you change. There are often songs that
Yeah.
mean different things as you grow and change. Every once in a while, you'll see on social media if what subject could you talk about for if you were going to do a TED talk? What subject would you pick without any warning? Just someone says, "Hey, you got to do it."
Mm-hmm.
And I always say that Better Days. To me, that song says that you have to enjoy the journey of life and not wait for results.
Yeah.
I think too many times people say, after I get the kids out of diapers, then I'm going to enjoy a parent. After I get my book published, then I'm going to feel successful. After I get that raise, then I'm going to enjoy versus understanding the here and now. And so I think that is a song that I take to heart when I'm struggling with my day-to-day journey and whether no matter difficulties I'm facing, I remember these are better days. These are better days. The journey is what matters. Thoughts on that? It's not really a question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree. I think it's interesting and cool that you would do a TED talk on just that song. That's great. And
Yeah, it just really I had it just I think so many times that people they don't enjoy the journey. And my wife is a big athlete, and she just recently did a half marathon after a long time taking off, and she enjoyed the training, she enjoyed all the work. She did everything she needed to do to and then enjoyed race day and then was happy afterwards, but the whole journey meant a lot to you.
Yeah.
What's been the what you mentioned you've done a reading? Talk about what you've done to promote the book and what's been the feedback so far?
Yeah, so I did a reading at my local bookstore on the launch day last month.
Mhm.
I did a quick radio interview, and that's about it so far.
Okay.
Otherwise, just telling everyone I know in my whole life about
Yeah,
it. And I think I've gotten all of them to get a copy by this point.
that's good. Yeah. I'm gonna get back to music, but before we do, once again, give the title of the book and what's the best way to find it?
Title is Everything I Need to Know I Learned from Bruce Springsteen. The best way to find it, it's everywhere you get books, including some small independent bookstores if you want to support those, or at least you can order it from them, I'm sure.
Hmm.
And yeah, or you can follow me on social media just at Trevor Courneen. And yeah, I'll be reminding everybody it exists plenty from
Yeah.
here on out.
Is what when you're writing this, I imagine how do you decide what's the right amount of what lessons do you pick? What songs? How do you know what's the right amount to do this? Because obviously, with such a huge catalog, there's a lot of themes and stuff you could find.
Yeah, I was just thinking before we started this and what you were saying about enjoying the journey and wondering what's next. I was
Yeah.
thinking maybe what's next is an expanded version of this because there's so much that has to be left on the cutting room floor for a fairly short book
Hmm.
for a 50-year career. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I had a big list and I had the types of things that I think about all
Hmm.
the time where they just came flowing. And
Hmm.
then, but I also just dug around and watched a lot of late night interviews with Bruce from over the years and read some old like Rolling Stone profiles and stuff like that, and just
Hmm.
tried to dig a little deeper and find some nuggets, find some stuff I hadn't heard him say before. So there was a lot that was new to me just from the
Hmm.
process of doing extensive research to try to find just a perfect little pull quote that I could write about for a couple pages.
Yeah, I was curious of how much research did this go into? Did pretty quickly what you wanted to cover, or did you have just a broad outline and then you, as you were reading lyrics and watching interviews, is that kind of where it started growing?
Yeah, so when it was really happening and I had to start get going on it, I had mapped out everything I wanted to include.
Yeah,
I divided up lyrics, interview quotes, and there's just some just anecdotes, just things he's done that
yeah.
he based the lesson on. So I divided it up that way, and then but as I was writing it, sometimes I was writing something and I think I'm gonna be writing a lesson about this lyric, and then I start it and I'm like, oh, you know what? This thing he said in Rolling Stone 20 years ago is actually an even better fit for what I'm trying to say here. Yeah, there was some swapping out along the way. And then there's even he did that great Howard Stern interview while I was writing this. And so I ended up getting a lot from that I wasn't previously planning on.
Yeah, I think Bruce has become a better interviewer as he's aged. I think
I do
he's
too.
less subconscious. I feel like early he didn't like talking about himself, right?
Yeah.
And when they talked about when they released the No Nukes as a concert film, he said for the longest time we didn't like to be filmed because I was like, it's going to take away the magic if we watch this. And I understand why HBO decided to show that Stern interview because it was really insightful. The Apple interview with the guy when Letter to You came out, I can't remember the guy's name now, but it was a good interview. So I do think he's become he's always been articulate, but he's been better at talking about himself, I think, over the years. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. In the Howard Stern interview, he says he's an underrated guitar player, which I agree with, but
Yeah.
it's a bold statement, but of course he's earned the right to say it, but it's not something he would have said
No.
back then for sure.
No, even a few years ago when he was on um, AMC, or no, it was, yeah, Turner Channel Classics, AMC, maybe, I can't remember which one,
Mhm.
but he was talking about Searcher and another film. And he talked about, I'm not that good of a vocalist. And but then later, I think he decided to do the Soul cover album because I
Yeah.
do think, like at the time, I was like, no, Bruce, you're a great vocalist. You Bruce Springsteen sings the songs of Hank Williams. I'm there, right? I'm buying the album.
Of course.
I do think that in one of my former guests, and I'm drawing a blank on his name now, but said that, that in a lot of ways he is the in baseball, like a five-tool player, he is a great guitarist. He is a great songwriter. He is a great frontman. He is a great vocalist. He's a great writer, singer, when all these parts that, and you can't say he's underrated, but you can see, I think a lot of people, when they mention greatest guitarist of all time, he's not going to be listed. And
Yeah.
he would probably say, maybe I'm not top 10, but I'm top 20. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's pretty good. So I wanted to compliment the book. It's not available on Kindle, and I loved, and there is a lot of to be beautiful about getting a Kindle. You order it, it's immediately there. But I liked that
Yeah.
this was a hard copy. It's a perfect size. It's very small. It is filled with great photos, and it says so much. Now, how much trouble was it to get the rights to all the photos?
Yeah. It wasn't, we anticipated that being a
Yeah,
huge challenge. My photo director, Dave Weiss, is really just talented when it comes to knowing the challenges of either this photo is super rare, the photographer won't release the rights to it, or it's really expensive.
yeah,
It's with this book, it seemed like it was going to be all three of those things
yeah.
for the whole thing. But somehow he just kept finding ways around it and was able to, I think he reached out to some photographers and managed to get them to agree to it. And just also like a lot of great workarounds. Sometimes we have to be vague, and I'm just like, something from 1978 will do fine here. It doesn't have to be exactly
Mhm.
a picture of what's being talked about here. But yeah, it's truly amazing. Like the photos we were able to get for this. I'm so proud of that.
Any involvement with the Springsteen camp whatsoever?
No, there's not.
Okay.
This is unofficial, and I would assume not even on their radar yet.
Yeah, I feel that I've had a couple of episodes that were really special to me, and I've tried to find people who might be close enough to the Bruce camp to go, hey, I think this story is important. If not that I
Yeah.
want Bruce to know my podcast exists, but I think this story is something. So yeah. The I grew up, I'm significantly older than you, but Big Little books were a big influence on me. And this, I don't know if how much of that had to do with your influence, but if you Google Big Little books, there was on the left was a photo and the right was text. And that was the whole format of the book. That is your format. How'd you come up
That
with that
is.
format?
That was already just in place because we made like the same version of this book, but with Dolly Parton.
Okay.
And I loved the way that one came together. And I figured
Okay.
that works. Let's stick with it.
I did not realize this is your second What I Learned from book.
Oh, I didn't write that one,
Oh, okay.
but
Okay.
our
Okay.
company put out
Okay.
a Dolly Parton and a Betty White one.
Oh, okay.
So it's almost a little series with pop culture icons we're starting
That's
to build here.
that's cool. So what's next for you creatively?
Right now, I'm just focusing on now that this is out, I've just been working on stuff with my band.
Hmm.
I play in a band called Deep Wimp, and we just had a new album out. So that's my excitement has shifted to that now that the book's been out a month, and now I've got something else to promote.
Tell me a little bit about the band. What's the name of it?
The band's called Deep Wimp, and we're certainly not the E Street Band,
Okay.
both in size and sound.
Okay.
It's more of I think it's just a nostalgic, a little bit of a throwback to the early 2000s pop punk and emo type of stuff that we used to love when we were in high school, and like Blink
Okay.
182 and those types of bands. And but we're all, the other guys are big Bruce fans too, and we certainly do channel him when we're able.
Do you guys ever throw in a Springsteen cover when you're performing live?
We've done an impromptu Hungry Heart when
Okay.
the other guitarist was having a technical difficulty with the amp,
Yeah.
and I wasn't exactly sure what to do next. So I was like, here's this one. We know this. So
Oh, that's great.
and it was well received. So I had to see it through, and hopefully they forgot why it came about in the first place.
Oh, that's great. That's pretty good. Oh, what's the name of the new album?
The new album's called Like a Vine.
Okay. And where is it available?
Wherever you stream music,
Okay.
Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, hopefully on vinyl in a few months.
Okay. Nice. Deep Wimp, Like a Vine. I just went to your Facebook page and liked it. So I will
Thank
check
you.
that out. I've got two things to do now. You have to check out the music and finish the book. So great. Any do you have an itch to write another book?
I do, yeah. I've got some ideas. I think I'll probably do. I've got some more ideas for this type of format, the everything I need to know.
Okay.
And I also want to challenge myself and maybe write something a little more out of left field, since I think everyone who knows me is like, of course his first book is about Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah, okay, good. Going back to Bruce, are there songs that you haven't heard live that you are still chasing? Do you have a few white whales that you would love to hear live?
Yeah, I don't think I will, but
Yeah, sure. That's a lot of us have.
the way it's going. But yeah, I love a couple of the B sides. So Ain't Good Enough for You
Oh,
from,
that's one of my favorites. I
yeah,
wanted that so bad. Yes. Yeah.
it's so fun.
Yes.
Maybe something will inspire him to pull it
Yeah.
out in 2024. Who
Yeah.
knows? And also Cindy from the Ties That Bind
Oh, yeah,
collection.
that's a good one. Yeah.
And of course, Clarence sang backup on that one, but maybe Jake would be up for it. It's
Mm-hmm.
such a cute song.
Mm-hmm. Oh, good. All right. Any final thoughts before I ask you the Mary question and we get out of here?
I think I'm ready for the Mary question.
All right. Jay Armstrong is a honors English teacher who's now retired in the Philadelphia area. And when he was teaching, he would give his students the lyrics to Thunder Road, and they would read them. They would talk about the themes Bruce uses, the imagery he portrays, and then he would ask his students at the end of the class, does Mary get in the car? Trevor, that is your question. Does Mary get in the car at the end of Thunder Road?
That's such an awesome question, and I wish I took this English class. But,
Yeah, I can send you the link. Jay joined me, God, multiple years ago and talked about, he gave me a mini version of what he and his class discussed. So I will send you the link
yeah,
so you can talk about it. Yeah. You can hear
cool.
it. Yeah. And I
So
agree. I would love that class.
those lucky kids. So I think wholeheartedly, of course, Mary gets in the car. This is the first song on Born to Run, which is just the whole premise of Born to Run is, I think, taking a chance and just like living your dreams, or at least chasing them. And so I can't imagine a world where, after all that, after he's sang her the greatest song of all time, how could she not go for it? It's like with all the ideas presented, just it to me, it has to be true for it to support everything that follows it on that album. That's what I have to believe.
I love it. That's a great answer. Very good. All right, Trevor, we want to reach you. How can we?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram, Facebook, just at Trevor Courneen. My band is at Deep Wimp. And yeah, I'd reach out if you like the book.
Yeah,
Get in touch. I've gotten some messages from strangers saying they like it, and that's awesome. I love that. You're
absolutely.
more than welcome to contact me that way.
Perfect. Everything I needed to know, I learned from Bruce Springsteen. Wisdom from the music and musings of an American dreamer, Trevor Courneen, available wherever you want to get books. It is not too early to be discussing Christmas presents. This will be any Bruce Springsteen fan, any teacher. I think this is a great book to share because they're always looking for things to like to do story times, to do talks. And this is a wonderful format to share. If you're a Cub Scout leader and you want to end with a lesson, this is wonderful. I think
Yeah.
this is a joy, and I'm so glad we got to spend time talking together.
Yeah, this was a real pleasure for me, Jesse. I really appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. All right. You want to give us another one on our way out?
Yeah, sure.
Another reading? Great.
Yeah. Let's see. Can I say a quick curse word on this podcast?
Yes, you may.
Okay. So this one is one of the last entries in the book. It's called No One Has Ever Truly Gone. In 2011, when the world lost Clarence Clemens, the E Street Band's towering magnetic saxophonist, Bruce eulogized his dear friend as only he could. How big was the big man? The boss asked attendees at Clarence's funeral. Too fucking big to die, he answered. For fans, this statement is an irrefutable fact. Anytime the band hits the road, they're now joined by the big man's own blood as his nephew Jake Clemens mans the mighty horn that will forever be essential to the E Street sound. When Bruce reaches the line in 10th Avenue Freeze Out, recalling when the big man joined the band, the music stops as the screens surrounding the stage roll classic footage of Bruce and Clarence setting the world ablaze. In that moment, Clarence's presence fills the arena in a capacity that redefines the phrase larger than life. On his 2020 album, Letter to You, Bruce continues to celebrate the legacies of those he's lost over the years. In the accompanying documentary film, The Boss honors the memories of Clarence Clemens and the E Street Band's late Danny Federici, but he also calls attention to the loss of friends from one of his first bands, the Castiles. In a poignant moment before the song Last Man Standing, Bruce reveals he's the only surviving member of that group. But in the closing track on Letter to You, the boss finds and provides comfort with a simple sentiment: I'll see you in my dreams. Losing loved ones is something we all have to face as time goes on. But you can keep someone's spirit alive if you honor the way they lived and cherish the connection you shared. This philosophy isn't unique to Bruce, though it's one he feels confident enough to proselytize to others. In a 2021 appearance on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, when the host asked him what happens when we die, the boss said, individual consciousness, adios. But our souls and our spirits, I think, live on with the people we've loved and who've loved us. Maybe everything that dies really does come back someday.
That is perfect. That is so
Thank
perfect.
you.
Yeah, what a perfect way to end it. Trevor, thank you for joining me. This is a joy. Everyone go check out the book. Buy it. You will not be disappointed. But for now, be kind, be safe, and we will talk to you soon. Goodbye.